Hello, welcome to your preview of the monthly rune reading. I first want to say something about the rune readings that I do for people, for individuals, so not these. I am trying to step away from doing them in writing, and I am transitioning to use a modernism to doing them all via Zoom, which is so I'm going to make some changes with that. Also going to change the way I do them. So rather than offering specific readings, I'm just going to offer sessions of more or less an hour long. And then you can have any type of reading that you like, really. So they're all going to be the same price because they're all going to be around the same time that they take, because the writing, I have noticed that it can be difficult to sit down and write while my toddler is awake, and then when he's finally napping, I'm not always in the mood for it. And video chatting is easier. It's just more pleasant, also a bit more personal, and you will of course get a recording of that, so you still have something that you can keep. Now, off to the preview. Sorry for that small sidetrack there. It's 5 runes. The middle one is probably the main energy. Just it's going to more or less apply to the person individually. So, what is prevalent in this month and how you can use or utilize that in a way that is beneficial for you. Then there are 4 runes around it. One that pertains to the outside world, and I've said this in the member reading as well, that I have the feeling that this pertains to the wider world. Now, of course, you can experience that individually as well, on an individual level, but I always get the feeling it's more to do with the wider world. So, geopolitics, if you will. Well, not always, but often. Then there is the rune below that, which pertains to your ancestors or your intuition, your roots. And then there is the rune on the left, that which you have to leave behind, and the rune on the right, which is advice on how to move forward, on how to navigate the month. So, off to the reading itself. The middle rune is the one that I always do in these previews because, well, it is the most important one. And get right to it. It is Gable for this month. Now, it is the rune of gifts, of mutual exchange, but also mutual energy, of effort, reciprocity. So the rune cannot be inverted. So that can indeed be a very positive thing, and usually is, that there may be a very strong focus on family, close friends, mutual appreciation, bridge building, and forging of a strong basis for the future. On the other hand, it can also indicate give as good as you get, which for most people doesn't carry connotations that are all too positive. But it can mean don't be taken for a ride. And that's something that a lot of people can experience in the workforce, this feeling of not being appreciated for your efforts. Effort such as underpaid overtime, always being the person that is picking up the slack behind others. It is unhealthy on the long run, and that will manifest itself in stress, which will give you anxiety, sometimes nightmares. It's hard to relax. Stress is a very underrated thing for your health. It can cause you all sorts of problems. Lots of things that we experience are due to stress. So make a correct and a fair assessment of your work environment, and where possible, put in an appropriate effort. Some people, this may mean that they have to put in more effort. For a considerable amount of people, I imagine this may mean that they should not stretch themselves too thin. And for what is most likely a minority of people, this means that they ought to carry on as is. But be honest with yourself, because honesty in this situation is fair, a fairness and a justice that you do unto yourself. It may mean you need to reevaluate or renegotiate the terms of your employment, otherwise known as your contract. On a much gentler scale, this could indicate that we ought to check on families and friends, especially the ones that were there for us when we needed them, people that helped us out. Some people do not reach out when they need help, and just the notion of somebody calling them just to check on whether they're okay, that can make a world of difference. Such a thing is bridge building. It it instills trust and friendship, which friendship is an aspect of this rune, because friendships are mutual exchange of energy, effort, and love. It really can make somebody's day a lot brighter, knowing that somebody out there cared enough about them just to check, just to pick up the phone. And on an even gentler scale, it can mean we don't just need to tell our loved ones that we love them, but we also have to show it through our actions, acknowledging our own shortcomings in our close relationships, and try to do better in the future. But also communicate to our loved ones on the things that we experience as something unpleasant in the relationship. This doesn't need to be something big. It can be small things, but small things are usually the things that break up relationships, like not closing the toothpaste. It's things like that. Relationships that last in time are relationships that are not one-sided. They're not codependent, and they are the ones that where we can be honest with each other without having to be cruel about it, be annoyed about it, or be unwilling to make compromises. Because these types of relationships that are where somebody is unwilling to make compromises, or somebody is always annoyed when you tell them something that annoys you, or people are cruel to you, these are ultimately predatory and vampiric, and they do not last in time, usually when one of them is completely drained. Now, it can also mean that we may be pressured to take a good look at our checks and balances. If we are in debt or we owe somebody money, we need to start looking at ways that we can repay. And if not able to right now, then start making minimal steps, because not doing so may have effects that reverberate in the future in ways that you may not enjoy. Not to say that it's going to be disastrous or catastrophic, but if unpleasantness can be avoided, it's always wise to do so. With spring, a lot of people feel a sense of renewal. And in that sense, it is not just a rune of mutual exchange between people, humans, but also the rune of exchange between humans and their gods. So with spring, in the sense of renewal that people can experience, that can be applied to spirituality as well. If there are certain spiritual practices that you have done in the past and you wish to pick up on again, it would be a good time to do so. It's a selfish and rather childish thing to only knock on the doors of Asgard or Vanaheim when we need or want something. The gods are not just external forces that we can call upon, they're also archetypes within our own psyche. And it pays off to pay close attention to them and to foster relationships. So, a good time to make offerings to the gods, to renew the relationship that you have with them or your ancestors. And likewise, as above, so below, it's a good idea to not let good relationships with other people water down. We need to show our friends and our family that we care, not just tell them. And we show that through our everyday actions. Well, that was it. And thank you so much for listening. Um, and may you walk with the gods.